Good morning, everyone. Welcome back, everybody, to Adobe Live. I'm super pumped for this morning. It's going to be so much fun. Thank you, everyone, for kind of sticking around, hanging out with us. Thank you so much, Paul, for that wonderful stream you just did. My name is VooDoo Val, and I'm going to be your host for another epic drawing and painting stream with my new friend, Tyler Pate. Tyler, how are ya?
Hello, I'm doing great.
Awesome. I'm super excited to kind of jump into what we did yesterday, do a little recap and things. But first, got some housekeeping points I'd like to go over. I want to pull up the schedule to kind of let you folks know what we had earlier today and what you can expect from the show for the rest of the day. So I'm going to jump over here. You guys know we had Mr. Brandon this morning with getting started in Adobe XD. We just had Paul Tranny with the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge. Tyler and I are here for a drawing and painting now, and then after us at about 11:30 Pacific, we're going to have the one and only Julia Masalska here with the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge. Adobe XD Workflows coming up right after that, followed by Jesse Showalter, who will be here for the XD Daily Creative Challenge, and then we're going to round out the day with Doodle Therapy with Alice Lee, so it should be pretty awesome. Jordan Crawford, it's so good to see you. There's some guy in chat named Tyler Pate. I don't know who that is. Typing in chat. Never seen him before, never heard of him. Brandon is in chat. Good to see you. Hello, Lucas. Hello, Anthony and Cornell. Andreas, good to see you folks. Owen, welcome in. Ernesto, welcome in. But yeah, so before we kind of dive into today's work, why don't you introduce yourself, Tyler, for those of the chat who maybe weren't here yesterday, and tell them a little bit about you, about what you do, and kind of how you got started maybe in the art world.
For sure. So I'm a graphic designer and illustrator. I have about 6 years, experience working in ad agencies and then working with different brands. I'm a full-time freelancer now, where I get to illustrate and kind of design logos and other branding materials for different, companies, brands, and just cool experiences out there that I get to visually help with. And today, we're gonna finish this burger.
Nice. I'm gonna pop over so they can see the legendary burger, because I think you snazzed it up a little bit after yesterday, and I'm blown away. This is so cool. So tell us about this. Tell us kind of how you worked on it yesterday and what your plans are for today.
Yeah, so yesterday, if you happen to watch, this is kind of where we started. I had a little picture I did just with a pen and piece of paper. Threw it into the program, put it on its own layer so I can kind of separate it from my artwork. And then we started just building each one of these layers of the burger. I kind of worked from the furthest piece of the illustration to the front. So started with the bun, and then we kind of worked our way down. And some of the things that I worked on, in between our last stream was some of these other details. And I wanted to go ahead and add these on my own time just so that I can make sure we get to them. And I can kind of show how some of these things are built. But I would just say a lot of this stuff is just very time consuming. I added all these little seeds. Again, I probably made maybe 4 or 5 of these little sesame seeds, and then I'm just like duplicating them and just placing them where I think is kind of an illusion to where they look all unique, and you can't really tell that there's a seam to it.
I love that you added not only like the seeds, but you also added like darker versions of the seeds in the shadow of the edge of the bun, and then like the little craters on the bread itself. That is so cool.
Yeah, and that's something that I kind of play around with a little bit, because I don't put all my texture in one program. And you'll see here in a bit where I'm going to kind of bring this over to our Photoshop and really snazz it up with noise, some distress, and all these kind of things that I typically do in my work. But sometimes it's good in vector to add some of those details too. Again, I think it's like a mixture of both programs that really give the effect I want. And yeah, you gotta work that type of idea all the way through. I added some more detail to the tomatoes. You'll see here, And if I go in outline mode, you kind of see how these things are built, and they look pretty complicated, but whenever you kind of zoom in on the one piece and you're building it one at a time, it's not that bad.
It actually reminds me kind of like 3D modeling, like wireframes a little
Mhm.
bit when it's like that.
Yeah. And that's sometimes I'll get questions of, is this made in a 3D program, or it would be so much easier to make in a 3D program. You're probably right. I don't have any sort of background in 3D modeling. I'd love to jump into it, but I just kind of started to work with Illustrator and kind of fake that approach a little bit by just building shapes in 3D. And there is the 3D tool or effect that a lot of times I can get away with, wrapping labels by using that effect, which is perfect because wrapping text is just the hardest thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that effect helps a lot. But I just like building them out. It's just fun to me. And same with like these little onions I added in there. There's 30 of them.
And you even
And
added like rings on the edge of the onion. Oh my gosh.
yeah, there's some details in there.
What? You really get in there and add the details. That's crazy, man, because that's like some like for me personally, I probably would have like tried to simulate it by painting in Photoshop, but so how did you do that though? In Cuz I'm
Yeah,
less familiar with Illustrator, so I'd love to know how you kind of got those ridges in there.
yeah, perfect. So I found a reference on Adobe stock here. That's kind of where I'm pulling some of my colors,
Mhm.
and I just started building one. And I don't know. I'm kind of like learning the form of this object. So I'm looking at these onions, and I'm like, all right, they're very circular. They have these little ridges, like what you saw. I tried to mimic, and these imperfections. So to build this, let's see if we can build it again.
Ooh, yeah, let's do it.
I I actually started out with like just an ellipse like this. Get a different color so we can distinguish all our layers. And then I went up to effect, and I think it was like I was messing around with the arc, or it might have been rise. Yeah, it was rise. And you could see that this is looking at least close to the angle of what you see above.
Mhm.
And that's going to give me a lot of my angles that I need. So I did something like that. Honestly, how about this? I'm going to make a new onion since I can have some variants in my onions above.
Okay.
So I'll do it a little different. But yeah, I'm using the same effect. I'm going up here to warp, and again, that's kind of giving me my overall shape. I'll do this one opposite. Something like that. I'm just playing with this. Luckily, the objects that we're mimicking here, a lot of them have imperfections, so we can kind of use that to our advantage
Mhm.
when it comes to making them. Something like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and expand the appearance so I can get rid of that effect. And then from here, I'm going to duplicate it and talk about a key command that's so useful. Hold Option and drag objects. I don't know if you've ever used this, but it just duplicates everything without having to do anything
Anything
up in the
extra?
mhm.
Yeah.
So that's gonna kind of start building our wall, you see.
Oh, okay.
And then to complete the wall, I'm calling it a wall. I don't know, the outside of the onion, I guess. I usually connect it like this.
And then just push it behind.
Mhm.
Yeah, nice.
And I eventually clean it up, and I'll use Pathfinder so that it's actually a shape. Because as that as that effect that I just did, it does work. Sometimes whenever you move things around, you might not have that shape selected, and it'll cause you some troubles.
Gotcha, gotcha.
I'll merge, throw it in the back. So this is kind of what we're working with.
So it like keeps it clean too, I imagine, once you
Hmm.
go into like the outline mode and everything, so it's not a bunch of random pieces laying all over the place. You can really
Yeah,
visualize it if you have to. That's cool.
and it's something I've learned, especially since I love to add detail. The more points you have in a document, the
Mm-hmm.
slower your document is going to be.
Oh yeah.
So that's a note for self. If you started making a bunch of complicated objects, the more little points you have, it's gonna really slow your computer down.
So keep your document organized. That's a
Mhm.
big thing for me. And I think that like I make jokes all the time. I think I even said it yesterday where sometimes I'm on like in Photoshop, I'm on layer like 497.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering to myself, like, why is my Photoshop so slow? And then I realize it's all my fault because I've got these massive layers and like all these
Mhm.
groups and all this stuff, you know? And I'm trying currently to really train myself to keep better track of my layers and organize
Mhm.
stuff because it really is a good skill to have to be a little more organized with things.
Oh, it really is. We talked a little bit about it yesterday. With just once you start having a workflow and freelancing a good bit with your clients, and you've got to have organization, you've got to have efficiencies,
Mm-hmm.
and building these skills, you're able to just get quicker with it, and that's kind of the goal for me at least.
Let's see. Your process it looks so cool from Anthony Jackson. And then I know we've got a few other things. How much time does it take you to add these details, and what tool did you use to add the sesame seeds, Tyler, from Cornell?
I created the sesame seeds with the pen tool.
Mm-hmm.
So I just it's a very simple shape. Sidetrack for a second. This is kind of my reference. I mean, if you zoom in on one, you see here's the ones I
Oh,
made.
gotcha. Okay.
So I'm like using this bun here for reference, and I'm like, oh, well, that's what a sesame seed looks like from a side angle. That's what it looks like if it's flipped upside down, and any sort of angle I need. So that's how I picked the ones that I duplicated, and then I just added my own shadow, my own highlight, and then I grabbed those and then took it back over to my illustration and started placing them.
Nice. And then Ernesto says, I love the mustard dripped on the onion, like how the mustard kind of drips through the burger. I also like that little detail. That was very cool.
Shout out to him. He actually commented on my post on Instagram, and he was like, "The order of your sandwich is wrong." And I looked at it again. I was like, "Oh yeah, I need to have the cheese above the meat." And then I went on a
You
tangent.
gotta, you got your burger order critiqued, man.
I know.
What's wrong with you?
Like, great illustration, horrible culinary
Execution,
skills.
yeah. He also says though, what can we do to lower the number of points we have in our document? I think that was just, kind of you saying like lowering the amount of points by just kind of combining and like merging shapes so that you
Mhm.
don't have tons of little tiny floating pieces all over, um, which I think
Yeah,
does help.
it does. And I'm a huge believer and user of the pen tool, and I think you're able to eliminate by doing that. Sometimes if you're, you know, meshing a bunch of different shapes together, the program's making those points based on those overlaps. So if you're in full control with the pen tool, you're able to really say, all right, this is needed, that's not, this is needed. Same for
Nice.
the brush. The brush, we talked about the brush, and some people would say, why not use the brush for this? Well, that is simulating points where I don't know where they're going to go, because
Mm-hmm.
I was to do a brush like that or a stroke, you know, let's see where those points, it placed 4 points or 3 points there.
And you just, yeah, you don't really, if you're
Hmm.
not planning it, you don't really have the opportunity to organize it as you
Hmm.
go. You just kind of get what you get and then you can go back and clean it up. But I imagined using the brush tool the whole time, and then waiting periodically to check those points. You might
Hmm.
eventually get to a place in your project where it's overwhelming.
Yeah, and
So
I think so. I mean, maybe there's some wizards out there who could control that stuff, but I don't know. I found what works for me, and that's kind of what I'm sticking to, and I think it really gives me the control I want.
nice. This is so cool watching this come together because it really is like I know that you said that you're not really a 3D guy,
Hmm.
but I imagine that the way you're building this, if you ever like got into it, this would
Yeah.
definitely help you because you can really visualize things in a 3D space very well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Um, I mean, that's the goal. I've said it to so many people. I was like, I just want to get into a 3D program, and I just, it's just making time. It's the same thing that everybody else would tell you. It's like you got to make time for it.
Mm-hmm.
And learning a new program, I mean, it's tricky, if we're being honest.
Yeah, when I got into 3D, it was really hard at first for me to find like the right program that worked
Hmm.
well because I was so used to painting, and then jumping into
Hmm.
like 3ds Max and Maya and all those things. It was like so technical
Hmm.
that it really kind of put a damper on like my desire to do 3D
Yeah.
work because it just wasn't what I expected. It was too technical for me, you know.
Hmm.
But I started using ZBrush, and ZBrush
Oh.
was like sculpting, versus. I mean, you can still do like hard surface modeling in
Hmm.
ZBrush very easily, but try ZBrush because it's very like illustrating to me. Like it clicked in my head
Hmm.
where I was like, oh, I get it. I can
Yeah.
use my stylus and I can,
Yeah.
move things around and push and pull and all that stuff. And that was really, really cool. Um, let's see. How do you choose your initial colors and shadows from Ernesto?
It varies. A lot of times, I think it's maybe that's that artistic approach. I typically am drawn towards the muted colors.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of my work is it's kind of, those pinks, off whites, things like that. And then once I pick a couple of those, I'll then just yeah, I'll just make shadows of it. If you use your CMYK, which is usually what I work in most of the time, just because I'm able to get that full black slide bar,
Mm-hmm.
and then I can just adjust my shadows like that.
And I can pop over here real quick and kind of show off your Instagram
Yeah.
um, a little bit because you really do have like a favored color palette sometimes, and you use it so well where it's like, let me scroll through here so you guys can see like this cool ice cream sandwich he's done. This Born to Create helmet, it reminds me of Tank Girl. I don't know if
Oh
there's
yeah.
any Tank Girl fans in the chat, but I immediately thought of that. But it's like such a like everything is so warm
Hmm.
and appealing, but also like gritty. Like you like the colors suggest a softness, but then everything is textured, which is really cool.
Hmm.
And I love the Creative Pain vitamins.
Yeah.
And I love the Creative Pain bubblegum. These two
Yeah.
things are killing me. I love it.
Um, there's one in there that I've been stuck on. It's the ramen. That was my favorite for the longest time.
Oh, let me see if I
And
can find it.
and
Oh
that's
yeah, with the
yeah.
packet and everything,
Yeah.
creative flavor.
So, you talk about these projects, and it's always good, and I'm a very avid I guess spokesperson of have a passion project, have something that you could just, put all of your extra time into and just have fun with. And the creative pain's been that for me. And it gives me an outlet to make products and different designs and mediums that I would normally never get to do if I waited on that client.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's my best client is my own. So,
That's amazing, man. Yeah, this stuff
mm,
is so cool.
thank you.
I'm gonna. Oh man, you got a Darth Vader on here. I gotta get out of here. This is the danger zone for me. Danger zone, danger zone. Okay, there we go. But yeah, I love the texture. I swear though, like just getting to host you and like hang out and kind of watch you work, I
Mhm.
already have like projects lined up that you've inspired me to do that I have to like get
Awesome.
on as soon as we're done streaming and stuff. I want to know from the chat too, like what are like on the topic of like passion projects and personal projects and things that you folks love to do. What is chat working on? You know, what kind of things do you
Mhm.
guys have kind of on the side? Do you have things that you kind of escape into in the midst of other projects when maybe you become overwhelmed or just a little bored with certain other things? And if you don't, what would you like to do? You know?
That's good.
Let's see. Was that a Tesla truck? I think it was the Tesla
Yeah.
truck. I'm not sure
It,
how I feel about that, man.
uh, I think it's cool.
I think it looks like a low poly model that like just loaded into GTA 3 and
Yeah.
the textures have not like loaded onto it yet, and it's just like I'm sitting there looking at a car I want to get into, but it hasn't like it hasn't loaded yet. It's still
Um,
loading.
I would say
Ooh.
this. Are you a Blade Runner fan?
Yes, I am, and it does look like Blade Runner
Mhm.
esque. It
That's what
also
I
looks
would
like
say.
to me, it looks like a DeLorean kind of too.
Hmm.
So I get it, but
Yeah.
I also don't. Like, I also really don't. I don't know, man.
Well, I think it's something that gets people talking, which can't complain there. If it gets you talking about a car, and especially when some people you could care less about cars,
Yep.
I think it's a conversation starter.
I'm really one of those people too. Like I could literally care less about cars. They're
Yeah.
not like special or fun to me,
Hmm.
really. So yeah, the fact that I'm sitting here having a conversation
I
about
know.
about a truck is really important, I guess. So GG, Elon. GG.
Hmm.
Right now, I'm just making different designs for a new logo for myself using my initials. Been wanting to make a new logo for a while now. This from Jordan Crawford. Right on. And then Cornell says, I'm creating the Lego City undercover map with all the collectibles and side quests, which you can tick after you complete them in game. You know, that would be super cool just to do a series of Lego Man heads from like the Lego video games
Oh
in
man.
your style, uh, Tyler, like with all
Oh
the
yeah.
scratches and stuff. I
Yeah.
would totally do Lego Star Wars.
That's something I've never built. I mean, I grew up and love Legos.
Me
I've
too.
never made one in Vector. I've seen other people do it, and it's definitely perfect for Vector. I know that much.
Yeah,
Just
for sure.
emulate plastic.
I'm a nerd. You guys can't see because I have my green screen up, but I have behind my green screen on my shelves I have like this massive like Star Wars collectible collection, and on the shelf I have um uh the transport for Grand Admiral Thrawn, and I have the
Mhm.
giant Kylo command shuttle in
Oh man,
Lego built on my shelf that I
I was gonna
got.
say, do you have the Millennial Falcon?
No, I don't. I wish I did, but I actually went. This is like the nerd level that I've reached. Is I went into the Lego store and they had two new things. They had the Millennium Falcon, and they had the Star Destroyer. The Star Destroyer looks really cool. The Millennium Falcon, I sat there and I like caught myself because I was thinking, wow, they want me to pay this much for this amount of pieces? I shan't. I shan't. I was like so not down for it, and people around me were looking at me like, of course I didn't say I shan't. That's all in my head. That's here. But I was like, really? Like it was like $80 or something like that
Yeah.
for like not that many pieces, and I was like, wow, I've become a Lego snob. That's who I am now as an adult woman.
I feel like you just turned into CP3O just now.
I did. Oh dear. That's
Is that what
exactly.
you were going for?
No, it's not. That was like my pedantic
Pretty good.
like snobby voice, but yeah, I guess that's perfectly C3PO though.
Hmm.
I used to have the Lego Darth Vader build. It was one of the coolest Lego sets I ever had. I knew a guy that actually built his own Death Star, and you could like he built like a whole sphere, and then you could like take the side panels off, and there was like rooms in it, and I was like, I don't even know how you make, because he made it up himself. He just did it because they didn't have a set like that, not as detailed as his. I was like,
The
wow.
curves. Was it still kind of blocky, I guess?
No, he did like, it was really big, so he was
Wow.
able to do like a real cool like sphere kind of
Hmm.
design. It was crazy. Um, it was a centerpiece on my wedding cake table next to the wedding cake
Oh,
that
that's
was
awesome.
layered and looked like Bespin Cloud City. Oh my gosh. That's awesome,
That's
Michelle.
ultimate fandom right there.
Wow. Wow. I'm really like heartened, and I feel like super glad that there are so many Lego fans in the chat. Because it would have been really awkward if I was like, Legos, right? And people are like, no, we're grown-ups. We don't we don't do that. I'm like, oh, sorry.
Oh man, it's you gotta have something.
Yep.
I mean, I get stuck on like just sometimes older cartoons, and I love the style of so many earlier 2000 Nickelodeon shows or Cartoon Network shows.
Yep. I was just talking the other day. I used
Mhm.
to watch you ever watch Samurai Jack?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I
They rebooted
loved
that, didn't
They did. I haven't watched it because I was like, what if they ruin Samurai Jack? And I was
they?
just
Yeah.
like, I'm happy with the first one, so I'm just kind of like,
Mhm.
I'll just keep that. But I think that's also like a hugely nerdy thing to just
Mhm.
not want to ruin like the original with like new sequels. I don't know. Um but I used to watch Samurai Jack, and I used to watch this one on Toonami called Code Lyoko. Did
I don't know.
anybody watch Code Lyoko? It was like kids that had like a VR game of some kind that actually took them to another dimension,
Wow.
and they were like living in like a boarding school or something, and then they would go out because they were like super smart. They went out to like this area they built and like would port themselves into another realm and like fight monsters and stuff, which I was like, I want to do this when I grow up, obviously. Samurai Jack is awesome from Anthony. Yes, gotta get back to the past, bro.
All right. So that's pretty much what it was to make this onion. That's
Nice. Yeah, I love it, and I think it's such a cool thing to be able to do, because I always approach things from the standpoint of like, I'm just gonna draw every part of
yeah.
it, you know. And so seeing you kind of work like this, where you create this awesome shape and just kind of
Mhm.
go for it, um, gives me a lot of kind of inspiration for how I might maybe jump into Illustrator in the
Mhm.
future and like create things and then just paint over them later
Mhm.
to give it the texture I want, maybe. Because
Yeah.
sometimes painting things isometrically can be really hard to do.
Mhm.
But this is really cool.
Yeah, and you'll see. I should probably start speeding up so I can get to Photoshop, and you'll see where I do some of the painting on too.
Mm-hmm.
And this just kind of helps me, get a foundation that I can really work off of.
Yeah, yeah. So you're gonna add noise and like kind of
Mhm.
the scratches, like
Mhm.
the ice cream sandwich. You
Yeah,
said?
yeah, I'm gonna try to do that.
Amazing. I'm so excited to see how you do this. This is where I get to like really pay attention to how you do this so I can try to do it myself. Cuz I'm really eager for this.
Yeah, no, it's definitely fun to do. It gets back to the broken record again, where it just takes time, and if you can find any process or part of the process that you can kind of lose yourself and not focus on how long it's taking, it's probably a fun project.
Oh yeah, definitely. People in chat are still talking about like their favorite TV shows and stuff, and
Nice.
they've brought up Courage the Cowardly Dog, which
Yeah.
that was a good one, but also like low key terrifying in a
Oh,
lot of ways.
remember the slates?
Yeah.
What was that thing?
I don't know.
Uh,
The X-Men cartoons, yes. Oh my gosh,
is that
that was
FX?
like, yeah, it was like yeah, X-Men and X-Men Evolution for me. Like in Northern Cali, it was always on like Kids WB, kind
Mm.
of, you know.
Mhm.
And I used to watch that every Saturday morning, and I would like, me and my brother used to always act out the theme song.
Yeah.
And I was always Beast
Uh,
and Cyclops. So I would like get up and like do their little parts, and we were like, yeah, this is awesome. We were like 4.
that's great.
It was a good
I
show.
I recently watched the episode of Invader Zim. What
Yes,
is that one?
that is so good.
Really good.
Really good show. That's where I think Invader Zim like really influenced a lot of my art when I was a kid.
Hmm.
I never really drew like that, but I thought it was
So
so
fun.
cool, and like the color
Yeah.
palette. Those are like all my favorite colors, like the purples
Hmm.
and the black and the green and all those
Yeah.
like kind of like sour colors, like if
Yeah.
you know, and I love those color palettes, and that's like stuck with me my whole career really. That was a good
No, for
show.
sure. Talk about style. I'm pretty obsessed with that. Just the way it looks is so. I don't know. It's just so visually pleasing.
Oh yeah.
It's so funny, and I don't know. I think if you can find different forms of art that can really influence you like that, it's something's working.
And they're quoting Gurr, I believe. Michelle is screaming for waffles. Oh yes, they're very important.
Yeah, that's good.
For
Uh,
anyone who wasn't here yesterday, Tyler, how do you manage the perspectives? How do you move the object? This from Ernesto.
yeah. So I usually build my own perspective, so I don't use any sort of guides or grids generally. Luckily for this concept, it's very loose and everything's kind of falling at different angles, so you're able to kind of fake it to a degree. But I'm using a transformation tool a lot. So if I'll build another pickle here. Because again, I'll duplicate some things, but once you start telling that it's the same one throughout, that's
Mm-hmm.
you need to make another one. But let's see. I'll do circle. That's going to be this part. And I'm duplicating everything and pushing it back and then expanding it from the center to give me kind of my layers.
Nice.
And then we got little seeds there. Yeah, you're able to kind of fake it because again, I'm playing on a fine line of something that's a little realistic and something that's more stylistically depicted,
Yeah.
because that's something too that I sort of struggle with, because I'll sit here with adding all this detail and it looks really good up close, but when you zoom out it's like, all right, well, I'm not trying to make this thing look realistic, and it's kind of like on the fence of it and it looks weird. So I'm always having to dial it back a little bit in certain areas.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Because sometimes it's like I don't know, when it comes to like me painting, I always say like my painting style is kind of like semi-realism.
Hmm.
And sometimes I find myself like when I'm trying to suggest what something is without like doing every single detail, it can be really difficult sometimes to really get that point across while also not making it look exactly like I go and I'll be painting something, I'm like, wow, now like for example like this one pickle looks super super hyper real and then the rest of it is stylized, and then if I try to like dial it back and make it stylized, sometimes it's really hard. You have to really think kind of like logo creation and icon
Oh yeah.
design, like what's the bare components, like the bare
Yep.
minimum that tells other people what they're looking at. Like, what are the most distinct parts of this item I'm trying to make?
Yeah.
And then go with that.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you might find that you're putting way too much detail into certain parts that don't necessarily matter to communicate what you're trying to convey.
That's a perfect example. Building logos is that, and I think that's
Mm-hmm.
probably where a lot of my work kind of bleeds together, because I do build a lot of logos too, and you have to kind of flip the switch and it's like, all right, this isn't an illustration. You can't approach it always the same.
Mm-hmm.
Some logos can pull it off, but you still have to simplify it enough to where you can scale it and really depict what's going on.
Nihal says this is looking awesome. I agree.
Alright,
And then
so
now is when you're kind of like cleaning it up and making everything all one piece nice.
yeah, so now you're starting to see a little more dimension to it. And you know what I'm thinking about now? It's like that might be a little um, too clean. I think maybe let's see what it looks like if we add a effect to it to warp it.
Little
I
wave.
feel like everything else, yeah, I feel like everything else is a little warped. So I want to keep to it,
Oh yeah.
kind of flopping around. And it's gonna mess up some of my lines, but we'll have to get in there and modify it by hand.
I don't even know that I mind really, because if I'm thinking about like pickles on a burger and they're usually like kind of distorted, you know, like it's not perfect all the way around. I think this is a really great way to kind of simulate that effect of, you know, and pull in my memory of the actual item, you know.
Yeah, and I'm gonna, expand that effect so I can get these shapes separated,
Mhm.
and then kind of do the same. See like how that guy looks compared to this
Yeah, yeah.
clean one.
One could be a pickle and one could be like a slice of cucumber.
Yeah, yeah. It's a you mean a it's a young pickle and an old pickle.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so I'm just gonna connect these two. And this is what I did for all of the other stuff on the burger. I mean, it's pretty much the same process. It's just different shapes and you know, not freaking out when you see something that's, curved, because that used to get me a lot. It's like, oh wait, how am I supposed to get that angle?
Mm-hmm.
That's intimidating. Let's see. Let's think about where this guy should go. Where should he fall? Maybe
Mm,
replace this guy or something. I don't know.
yeah, that could work.
Get something like that. Throw him to the side.
Boom. Nice. Yeah, I think that looks good.
And then the trick too with lighting, again, I'm thinking of my lighting source is something like, let's see, if I was to just demonstrate where my light is coming from. And I mean, it's not completely accurate. I think if you're going for something that accurate, maybe, 3D program would be best. But my lighting source is kind of like this,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
I want to think about it. So to add a highlight on this guy, he's probably gonna be around the rim right there.
Cornell has to take off, but thank you so much for joining us, Cornell. Really appreciate you being here. Yeah. And then Ernesto says, can you tell us a bit about Pencilhead? How did you come up with him?
Well, it's like 2017. I was just creating this series of like designers, it's like, what is this designer of that's going through all these problem solving problems, and it's like constantly racking your head on how do I break through, how do I come up with this logo concept, or how do you get better at what you do. It's like just being a creative, and I'm a huge fan of the style of Fallout and
Mm-hmm.
the little vault boy.
Yeah, yeah.
So that definitely influenced it a little bit. And then the pencil in the head, it's like it's the implementation of the pain, it's
Mm-hmm.
literally creativity, sticking out your head. And
Yeah.
it's kind of where he came from. And I also just wanted something that I can constantly evolve and not really have it always be the same face or person. It's just a manifestation of it.
Lucas wants to know what you think about Cuphead, the video game, too. Which is funny you say that, Lucas, because Cuphead has a really distinctive style that if you haven't seen it, Tyler, you would probably like.
I,
It's really cool.
the game's so hard.
It is. I've only played it a couple of times, and I was just like, wow, for cute little buttons, you guys are really hard to deal with. I don't like this.
Yeah.
But it also, I was a fan growing up of like the really old, like old timey classic Mickey Mouse
Okay.
cartoons
Oh,
as
yeah.
well. So that style of like just like these happy little guys just kind of bouncing up and down and whistling and all that stuff. That was just really cool to see.
Is that tugboat Mickey, I think?
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. And then they also had like a Halloween one I remember really loving as a
Hmm.
kid. Where he's playing the piano and then all the ghosts and
Oh
skeletons are like
yeah.
dancing around. That one was really cool when I was a kid.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a good period for I think illustrations and cartoons.
Oh,
I
for
think I
sure.
definitely pull from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Anthony also says it's a very hard game. Indeed.
Just pulling these away so I can delete them. And a lot of times I'm creating shapes and then Command Zing all the way back to the beginning and then pasting what I clipped out.
Oh, wow, okay.
Because it just helps with layering it. Like right now, I just made what will be a shadow. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm copying that and then I'm Command Z Z Z Z Z all the way to the beginning. And then I'm gonna paste it.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Command F. So now it's like the perfect shape. It's, not sticking out or doing anything weird.
Nice.
This highlight's not looking good though. I'll just leave them like that.
Yeah, I like it. Popeye the Sailor Man. Yes. No, that's also a good one. Spooky, scary skeletons, says Ernesto. What's up, Serge? Welcome in. It's good to see you, man. We are just hanging out here with Tyler Pate, doing some cool hamburger design. We're adding some like final little details and stuff to it, and then I think we might even get into Photoshop at some point to add some interesting textures and things. Tyler, or I keep seeing people tag Tyler, and it makes me want to just say Tyler in with their question because it's right there before the question. Ernesto wants to know how many layers you have right now. Just one?
Yeah, well, two layers technically. I have a reference layer and then I have my artwork layer. Depending on what you're doing. See, I know my end goal is to copy all of this and bring it into Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not too concerned with my layers in this, even though if it gets too complicated, I'm, really hurting myself in the future. But yeah, just one layer. Let's see, what am I doing here? Outline. I need to fix this ketchup. And that was the stroke. We talked about it yesterday. How do we know when to use a stroke or a brush,
Mm-hmm.
and when to use the pen tool? And it varies. I definitely enjoy using combination. The pen tool is my go-to, but something like this, it's so much easier and to help keep things consistent if you just use a stroke.
Nice. Yeah, I can see how I kind of like how you really manipulate the points too,
Hmm.
to create a great kind of curve. I think
Hmm.
that's probably my biggest thing using this tool is sometimes I don't really have the finesse to warp it the way that I really need. It takes me a little
Yeah.
while to kind of get into the groove of it for sure.
What really helped me is if you have the time to practice, a good exercise is create circles with points
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of dissect the ellipse, and like the pre-made shapes.
Mm-hmm.
If you dissect them, you and click on each point, you see the angles that are being used to make it.
Uh-huh.
Try mimicking that, and then that's going
Oh,
to tell you how to get perfect, curves.
okay, that's a great
So,
idea.
so whenever I'm looking at the tail end of this ketchup stream, I guess I'm I'm visualizing this. I'm looking at this and it's like, how do I make that cutout
Mm-hmm.
perfect? You know, and I could just go in here and clip it out. I could do that, but I'm not looking for anything that perfect.
Mm-hmm. But just like
So
the basic gist of it is fine.
Yeah, like usually these little nodes need to be, symmetrical,
Mm-hmm.
and the angle that you're pulling away from each side of the point needs to be the same. But I'm tapering this line, you see.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to make it a little smaller once you get to the end of it. So that just means, working with it a bit more.
Let's see. Yeah, Lucas is talking about the textures and stuff, and I think I can actually like quickly pull this up, because this is kind of what we were discussing yesterday, is like this close up here on this ice cream sandwich of like how he did the kind of clean Neapolitan cute version of
Mm-hmm.
this ice cream sandwich, and then he did this really cool like bite cut out kind of close up where you can see all these like scratches and things, which I thought were really cool. So we're going to get into a little bit of that process. I also noticed that on this you have like this really cool like spattering just on the surface of whatever table this is laying on, that I
Mm-hmm.
thought was really cool too, and it's very subtle, but it's
Yeah.
also like super super cool looking because it just adds. I think where like noise and texture is concerned, sometimes it's not that you want to add like a harsh noise to the piece. It's like adding subtle textures that just give it more of a gritty feeling without, the viewer really being able to pinpoint like, oh, it's gritty and textured because X, Y, and Z. It just kind of is subtle in
Yeah.
there.
No, I'm glad you noticed that, because what I do with that is by adding that noise to, let's say, the the ground, or the bottom surface of what it's laying on,
Mm-hmm.
it's really helping me define a little bit of perspective and shading that makes sense to the object, because it's giving it kind of a world to sit on, and it's not just floating in space with a background.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I think about it.
Yeah, it just adds like a little more. Sometimes that's kind of like sometimes even just adding like a shadow or something underneath, and the
Hmm.
background is totally like 100% filled the same color.
Hmm.
But adding that little bit of stuff makes it look like it's sitting on something. It's in a space. It's on a surface. It just doesn't really matter what that is right now. You know.
Hmm. Just kind of gives a pedestal to show it off.
Yep. Yep. I agree.
All right, I'm trying to wrap this up, and then we'll dive on in to the next stuff.
Nihal wants to know what your favorite game is. Are you a gamer at all?
Uh, not so much. I used to play a lot, and I've just time is the thing right now. But
Mm-hmm.
I will say I keep up with some of them. I'm growing up. I was huge Metal Gear Solid
Oh
fan.
yeah.
Um, I was Sony all the way,
Mm-hmm.
and Nintendo. I did play, like, my little nephew has a Nintendo Switch, and I was playing it a while back, and he has Luigi Mansion,
Nice.
and it's so funny because if you were to look at my timeline of things that I post, you could totally tell what I'm doing and what I'm seeing in the
Mm-hmm.
world, because I generally draw from it.
Nice.
It's
Yeah.
like the Cybertruck was that, I did a lot of Mario illustrations a while back, and even the gaming consoles. It was around the time I was playing that Switch, and I was like, this would be cool to illustrate.
I feel the same way about my art when it comes to like, if you ever want to know what kind of movies I'm watching, just like go look at
Yeah.
my Instagram, because you'll see like portraits of all of the characters and
Hmm.
like illustrations of like key items and artifacts from the show. And like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, okay. Val is rewatching Hannibal right now, definitely, because for whatever reason, Mads Mikkelsen is like all over the Instagram, and what else could that mean?
No, I think it's cool. You have to be influenced by something,
Yeah, yeah, for
especially when you're
sure.
creating. I guess we're creating art.
Mm-hmm. I think one of my favorite things about art, and like at least like the way that I do it and the way I like to express myself with
Hmm.
it, is that you really can, like, if you get, like you said before, like getting into a groove where you're doing something and it doesn't really feel like work because you're just really enjoying the process and kind of just
Hmm.
getting into it. When I find that zone, it's really nice to just be able to like express my own opinions when it comes to like
Hmm.
doing fan art and stuff of things. Maybe
Yeah.
similar to the way like you were doing the ramen and everything, just kind of like
Hmm.
repackaging it to meet like your own personal
Yeah.
idea of what's like really cool. It's just getting to kind of take things and take concepts and transform it into whatever you feel like making it. And
Mhm.
that's really satisfying to me.
Yeah, it is. And you know, a lot of the creative pain stuff and why I'm mimicking other products and just things that we see is I got really obsessed with that inspiration's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that you see a designer or somebody created. And I wanted to like, reskin everything of like what if everything was kind of like, creative pain brand and you just didn't notice it.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's tugging on those chords that's like, oh, I know what that is. What is that? That's Heinz ketchup. But it's not.
Now it's creative pain ketchup.
Yeah, no, it's the creative sauce.
Yeah, the creative sauce. I love it.
That exists, by the way. I made that.
Really? Oh, I have to
Yeah.
scroll through and find it. Oh, I see the milk. I see the milk one, and I see, let's see the ramen. Let me see if I can scroll through here. Is it on your Instagram?
Yeah,
Oh, there it is.
way back there.
Yep. Here we go, guys. There's the creative sauce right there. Boom. I love it.
Thanks.
So cool.
Yeah, I'm kind of building that, and hopefully it'll get to a point where I can get a book made with all the creative paint illustrations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at like 50 so far. So,
Oh, nice. Yeah, just do like a little
mhm,
illustration book. That would be
mhm,
awesome. You could even do like a zine or something.
mhm, totally.
This is
So if
so
anyone's out
cool.
there who could help me turn this into a book or put this in a gallery,
Yeah.
help me out.
That would be so cool to be able to walk through a
Mhm.
gallery and like see all of these different like
Yeah.
product versions like in a row, like
Hmm.
in a series. That would be sick.
Okay, so I think I'm looking over everything, and I don't think we need to add anything else. I think this is what we're gonna work with.
Awesome. So I'm excited to see like the transference from
All right.
Illustrator to
So
Photoshop.
this is probably the most technical thing to do right here.
Mm-hmm.
You have to copy and just paste it in.
Boom.
that's that's all I do.
Pay
And
attention here because this is going to be a really detailed sequence of events, and you don't want to miss it. Just
so
copy and
one
paste
thing,
it.
yeah, I know it's like this. You don't blink. Uh, but one thing I did kind of plan. What this is. This is a oop, that's cool.
That was cool. That was like
I
the
know.
what was the patty, the Krabby Patty from
Oh man.
this, I can't remember what that was called, but it looked just like that.
No, I was just gonna show kind of my file setup because I typically do everything like pretty large,
Mm-hmm.
and this is where it helps to have sort of a computer that can handle this.
Mm-hmm.
Because 9 times out of 10, I don't know what this might be down the road. This might be a print. I'm just making it.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to give myself some room, or if I come back and I'm like, oh, let's get this printed, I know I have a high enough res to work with. So 15 by 15, uh, plenty of room for what I would imagine ever printing it on, and then I keep it 300.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could dial the resolution down to 250 if you want, because I mean, look at my image size already. It's already at 57 megs,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a pretty large file. But this gives me enough wiggle room to really do what I need. So I just pasted this guy in. This is where I do a makeshift file management off to the side, but it's nothing crazy. I mean, just kind of labeling my layers so I'm loosely know where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
So artwork, we need to get a background, so I'll usually just put a shape back here so I can keep changing the color if I need to. Again, I always go off of like tans or just an off-white. I just looks so good to me.
Yeah, your color choices for that, they always work so well. I say stick with what you like because it always ends up being pretty dope, if I do say so myself.
Thank you. I mean, sometimes I'm like, man, this looks way better on a dark background. That's where I get stumped, and I'm just sitting here for way longer than I need to just make a background.
I'm like that sometimes too because I prefer to paint portraits.
Hmm.
And I have a bad habit of like really focusing on the portrait itself, and then I'm like, now I've drawn like this super cool character, and they're just floating in limbo, and then I'm like, do I want to make a background?
Yeah.
Maybe not.
You know, something I forgot here is we need to make a shadow.
Oh yeah,
And I'll kind of do this in Illustrator, but put a Gaussian blur on it in Photoshop.
that's a good idea.
So this is a weird, this is gonna be a weird shadow because there's a lot happening. Let's see, that's roughly what I need. Just crazy color so I can see it. It's looking like maybe something like that. But no, you're talking about the creative pain, and again, it's just that passion project. You know, the coolest thing, and this might help anyone out there who's kind of going through, you know, designer fatigue, or you feel like you're burning out a little bit, and
Hmm.
it does happen. It happens to everyone. I mean, I go through it sometimes, and I have to kind of step away. But what I found that works is stepping away and kind of working in a different medium if you're open to that. And luckily, the creative pain allows me to stay in the same ballpark of, you know, brand theme, so it always helps the main mission,
Uh-huh.
but it's a different thing. So I'll create, you know, sculptures or paintings, and they're all based around it. So I don't know if you noticed, but I one of the big things I just launched was a Kickstarter for the Creative Pain Creative Meltdown candle.
Oh,
So
I saw that image.
so I was making candles for a couple months, and it helped, and I was able to, you know, get it funded, which is, again, thank you to everyone who supported that and kind of helped fund it so I can get it made.
Yeah, I'm gonna
And
pull this
then
up so that we can see an image of it because it's really, really cool. Check that out. So you sculpted this?
yeah, so
Like by hand?
I created a mold around, you know, this 3D print that I had made
Oh,
of
okay.
pencil head. And then after I made that mold, I was just, you know, off to pouring, you know, concrete molds. And then from that, I was
Nice.
making my own candles to stick in it, and it's the creative meltdown because I think we've all experienced that, or at
Yeah,
least witnessed it.
that's so cool. That's awesome.
And then you could also turn it into a succulent pot for your desk.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, because I feel like so many candles you kind of throw away after you burn it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
like, well, this is like a piece of art, and I don't want you don't want you to throw it away.
That one was this candle holder slash succulent pot is like way too special to be gone after the candle is gone though. So Ernesto says he got one of those candles. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
you did.
F. Smitic, welcome in. It's good to see you again, friend. Oh, and Ernesto also asked, are you going to add the Creative Pain branding on the burger via the
Oh man,
toothpick? Oh,
dude,
yeah, the
shout
toothpick.
out.
Ernesto's on top of things
Yeah,
today.
man, definitely big fan.
I know, that's so
Thank you,
cool.
because dude, I totally forgot, and that's the most important thing.
Creative
All right,
Pain Burger.
let's distort this a little bit.
Man, that's looking so good. That cheese, like, kills me every time I look at it.
Turned
Like,
out
the
really well,
cheese
didn't
and
it?
the tomatoes, I think, are my favorite. What is everybody's favorite element of the cheeseburger pieces. Like, I gotta know. Paco's saying that loaded cheeseburger dough. I know. This is like a serious. This is like this cheeseburger is not messing around.
No, I was gonna add bacon, but I definitely want to get the texture. So
Yeah.
texture is more important than bacon right now.
Which is the only time that bacon is less important than anything.
I know. Right about that.
Malik, welcome in. It's good to see you again. Also, just a little reminder. There is a creative challenge going on right now. So if you go up to the challenge tab above the chat, you can click on that. It'll give you some directions on how you can get involved in the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge, how you can submit your work to the Discord. And if you do, about the 30-minute mark, I'm going to pull up Discord and kind of check out some of your cool entries and see what you folks have been working on. Wow, you made that little toothpick flag really fast. That's awesome.
We're not playing around.
Weird. This is not, yeah. Wow. But yeah, check out that challenge tab. And if you are over on YouTube and you don't know what I'm talking about, you got to head over to behance.net/live, because that is where we have all of our tabs. That is where we have most of the chat going on. And it's also where our wonderful moderators are posting resources and links and things that can help you with your design. So if you're wondering where all this stuff is that I'm talking about, it definitely is over on Behance. So come check us out. The cheese makes me so hungry, says Malik. I agree. I'm very hungry, and I might really need to go get a burger.
We're in the same dilemma. You know what's funny? I literally ate a burger yesterday after this.
Really?
I mean, I didn't plan that, but I was like, okay.
I ended up getting tacos, but now, like, I wasn't satisfied with them, because then I went and, like, kind of reviewed what we did yesterday, and I was like, oh, it should have been a burger. It should have been. Burger King ain't got nothing on this. I agree, Malik. I agree.
Okay, so what do we need to do? We need to get the toothpick. So to make that, I'm just gonna use another thing too that I sometimes have to really think about a bit more is sizing of everything. Like, all right, how large should this tomato be towards this bun?
Mm-hmm.
Same for this toothpick. It's like, all right, I don't want it to be too thin, but if it's too thick, it looks like a skewer.
Yeah, that's true. It's kind of, that's like the dilemma, I think, when it comes to design in general, is like, okay, whenever you take an image of something and something works in an image, like if you had an image of a burger with like a larger skewer in it, people would just be like, oh, it's just a big skewer, or it's just a big toothpick, or whatever, but when it comes to illustration, I tell people a lot that you can never do things in an illustration that looks slightly weird just because it works in a photograph. Because when something is a photograph, no matter what is odd about it, like be it anatomy or color or size or shape or whatever, if somebody's looking at a photograph, their mind will automatically just accept it, even if it looks weird, because it's a photograph. They're like, okay, that's weird, but if it's a photograph, this must be true, this must be factual, so I will accept that. If you try to do something in an illustration that looks a little odd, that doesn't happen. People they won't take it as fact and accept it just because the reference that you used has that. You do have to do a little bit of stylization and noodle around with it to make it look acceptable when you're doing an illustration.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that.
I specifically find that comes into play with like character anatomy and stuff, because people will be like using reference for painting, and maybe like the angle of somebody's arm is slightly weird, like there's a weird foreshortening going on with an arm, and they might even like illustrate it perfectly in their own painting, versus the image, but because it's a painting, people are like, wow, that arm is weird, and they're like, no, this is like the image, like this is really how it
Yeah.
works, but it doesn't always translate. um
Yeah.
so
That's really true. Especially with just portraits, you know? I mean, it's like, well, that's what's happening in that photo. And then they're
hmm
like, yeah, but it looks weird. And I was like, oh.
yep, yep. And it's all about, and I suppose like it's different depending on like the style maybe that you have, but more times than not, if you're using reference that has a weird angle, you do have to alter it a little bit when you
Mm-hmm.
know, when you go into like translating the art type a little bit.
Yeah.
By far my favorite is the Creative Fight Club soap. There's a Fight Club soap. Oh
Yeah.
man. Okay, I'm scrolling through. I'll find this one too.
Yeah, that was a cool one. So yeah, movies. You know, you mentioned Tank Girl, which I mean, I'm a huge Jamie Hewlett fan.
Yeah.
But that was Full Metal Jacket is what that was coming off of.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm definitely a movie buff when it comes to certain things. I like the influence that it had on me, and I'm like, oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah,
It's
I watched a lot of weird movies when I was a kid though. Like I watched like Tank Girl was cool. Akira was a big one for me when I was younger,
hmm
like the anime movie.
yeah.
I used to watch that. Let's see, there was a lot of really cool ones. Like back, I remember watching Donnie Darko when I was a
That's
kid.
a good
That
one.
was a classic too. I'd like to know what other movies really inspire folks in chat to kind of make art.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the anatomy anguish, Wadecuff says. Talk about creative pain. Yeah. I'm seeing so many different creative pain products now, and I love all of them.
Thank
As I'm
you.
scrolling through looking for this, looking for this Fight Club soap.
Yeah, I mean, that's just where, again, it's just having that little project that you can constantly work on like that it's the best. I mean, I get so many questions of like, how do you stay creative, or how do you do this or that with your work, and how do you learn some of these different techniques? It's like that's the secret. It truly is.
I found the soy sauce and like the, let's see, there was another one, the chocolate bar and the Campbell soup.
Oh man, yeah.
Oh man, there literally is so many of these. These are awesome. Been working on
Thank
this
you.
for a while.
Yeah, it's been going a couple years now.
Wow. There's a tree.
Yeah,
Creative
yeah.
pain tree. Oh yeah, I think I found the soap. That's awesome. Found like a portion of it, like a video.
As hard as you can.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it comes in handy because I think I did that for I was doing a talk, an AIGA talk, and that was part of the intro.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of like join the Creative Fight Club.
Nice, yeah. Oh, you know what one I like? I like the hold on, the firecrackers.
Oh yeah, that one's fun.
Very relevant to the times, being so close
Mhm.
to us just having the 4th of July. I don't think anyone in my neighborhood though knows that the 4th is over. However, I
They're
think
still popping.
oh yeah, I'm just like really terrified sometimes because I'm like, okay, the 4th has passed. We don't have to worry about this anymore. Nope, not in my neighborhood. It's
Yeah.
still the 4th of July. But these are really cool, like the close up for this and everything. So when you did the firecrackers, if you can't remember, that's fine because I think this is probably a while ago. But you didn't like. I'm looking at these. These look real. Like this is very well done.
Yeah, that's same process I'm doing here. Yeah,
Wow,
that was in 2017 when I made that one.
that's really cool, man. This is awesome.
But it's I'm very aware of like what influences me, and I think, dude, firework packaging I think is some of the coolest stuff. If you can find vintage firework packaging, it's so cool.
Yeah,
I don't know why that is. It's like the colors, the graphics, the
the
off
texture, yeah.
print is just
Mm-hmm.
so cool. So
Ernesto says, "Don't hate me, but if it were a pencil stabbing the burger instead of a toothpick, it would be very on brand."
guys on it. I don't know. What do we group chat? Do I need to do it?
I don't know. You could. It's up to you. It's up to
Okay,
you.
let's time me on this. See
Oh
how
man,
fast
you're
I can
just
make
gonna
a pencil.
go through it, make a. All right, all right. Let's see. I'll keep track of time. Yeah.
How are we on time though?
We still have 20 minutes before we take a look at the entries, so we're good. I think. I believe in you for sure. I think you can do this.
Might not be the best pencil, but it's going to be a pencil. Let's see.
It will resemble one. We'll know what it is.
Kind of resemble something. It's just a wacky looking pencil. Okay, there's that. I need to think about my angle. It's going to be something like this. Such a good idea. I mean, that's where, honestly, showing people your work, it comes in handy. I'll give you that.
Definitely. I think for me personally, one of the wonderful, wonderful gifts of broadcasting live has been the live feedback.
Mm-hmm.
There's when I started streaming, it was really hard and it was scary.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, kind of like we talked about yesterday, when you put your work on like on the internet in such a way, it really opens you up to like a whole new world of communication with people pertaining to your art.
Yeah.
Um, but there's really nothing like working on a painting and having somebody call attention to something in your work that you might want to change while you're working on it.
Right.
And what I mean by that is like I might finish a whole painting, and I've been looking at it so long that I don't catch something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe I forget to flip my canvas or whatever, and I don't catch something in my design, and then I post it, and then I wait a couple days, and when I come back to look at it, I realize that I've made mistakes. But when I'm streaming, there are people who will jump into the chat and be like, "Hey, that arm is weird," and I'm like, "Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, you're right." And then I get feedback, or I'll say, my painting, I feel like it could look a little bit more dynamic, and you always wonder kind of what your audience is going to think about your work. But
Yeah.
when you have a
Yeah. Yeah.
chat full of people, they can just be like, "Oh yeah, it'd be really cool to see X, Y, and Z," and then you can kind of listen to what the community wants to see from your work real time, and then you incorporate it into your art right then. And I really don't think that there's anything more satisfying than that when it comes to like creating the work. It's like getting that live feedback and being able to um, improve
Yeah.
in middle of each painting instead of improve after the
Yeah.
creation of each painting, you know.
That's so true because, not to like, beat yourself up in those moments, but it is a bad feeling for me whenever it's too late in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh man, you're right. That would have looked so much better.
Yeah.
But it's already done. It's already out there. It's,
Yep.
past the point of, no return.
Yep.
But yeah, that's what helps. I mean, it helps having that community around you.
Yeah, it really does, and it's also really cool just because I can't remember if I mentioned it yesterday, but maybe I did. Just like it being really hard sometimes to accept criticism
Hmm.
and like critique on your work, but I think it made me a lot stronger in that effect because even though I was like low key like terrified, to
Yeah.
kind of show off the work and to do that and everything. Um, it's still been a really interesting learning experience because it's like do I how am I going to accept criticism from people, especially when it's so on the fly and like, boom, here's my
Mhm.
opinion. What are you going to do about this?
Yeah.
And also, do I have the confidence and in my own work to say, I really appreciate that feedback, but I'm going to leave it as is because I like what I made. That
Mhm.
was like being able to get to that point was really awesome. And I think I got there
Yeah.
because I live streamed, because there were people giving me opinions, and I had to decide, like, am I going to change it every time somebody gives me a different idea or asks me to do something
Mhm.
different, or am I going to let some of those comments and critiques kind of roll off my back and just do what I want sometimes anyways, you know? So I think
Yeah.
it helped me grow.
And it comes back to you can't please everyone.
Yeah.
As much as I would love to, it just you can't.
Mm-hmm.
There's some things that it's like, well, that's you're one person. I can't I can't get everybody, and there's a lot of people sometimes.
Yep.
But
I agree. It's hard sometimes to as I think, like, whenever you create art, it can be so personal because we're like kind of putting a little bit of ourselves into
mhm,
each piece. So when somebody criticizes it, it can feel like a personal attack to some people, which I
mhm,
I totally understand, because that's how it felt like for me at first. But you really cannot please everyone, and so it's
no,
like, are you going to continue to create for yourself and for those people who do appreciate what you do, or are you
yeah,
going to let the criticism kind of tear you down every time somebody doesn't agree? Because I gotta tell you guys, if the criticism um, and critique really makes you uncomfortable, getting the farther you get out into the world of art and sharing your art, the more people there will be who don't like what you're putting
mhm,
out there, because you're putting it out to a wider audience, you
yeah,
know
mhm,
so it's definitely something to think about and something to kind of learn how to deal with, because there's never, like, you can't please everyone, and the more people you show your artwork, the more people there will be who don't think it's the greatest thing in the world. You're going to find more people who love your work,
yeah,
because you're showing it to more people, but it's something to think about, something to prepare yourself
mhm.
for, I would say.
And that's where I would say, not to say you have to go to school for this,
Mm-hmm.
because you definitely don't, but it does help to go to school to get aware of critiques.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the benefit, I would say, for school, is you're putting yourself under, the magnifying glass for a good reason,
Mm-hmm.
because, critiques are going to happen, especially in, design world or any sort of job you get. You want that. You need somebody to say, all right, this isn't looking good.
Yeah, you gotta change this, buddy. This is not.
Yeah.
And if it's not an option for you, you can always find creative communities online,
Hmm.
because now I think more than ever there's things available to people, um, sometimes for free, sometimes paid, where you can go and get a critique from somebody who really knows what
Hmm.
they're doing without that. For me, I wanted to go to art school, but it wasn't an option for me at the time.
Hmm.
And so I ended up going to I tell people, the University of YouTube, where I just
Yeah.
like got online and like watched some training videos, and then I found the Adobe community,
Yeah.
but I will say, I didn't really reach out to any mentors
Hmm.
at first. So I would say, like, if school isn't an option for you and you're kind of going your own way, making your own path, I would say definitely look for a reliable, trustworthy mentor, because that's something that
Yeah.
I definitely wanted, um, going
Same.
through everything. And that sometimes is everything, just having
Hmm.
that.
That's so true, because you don't get that in school every time. Even to this day, you're always kind of looking for mentors, and I
Hmm.
struggle with that a lot. I'm just, I still feel like a 13-year-old kid, where it's like, hey, can I just shadow you?
Yeah, can I just
But
watch you work?
yeah, and it's like, well, dude, you're a grown man. Get out of here. It's like, what, I just like doing this, and I like what you're doing. And and it's hard. And I expected that from, my first creative gig, like my first real job, and you don't always get that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where you just have to kind of observe what's happening. It's like, all right, well, I didn't get the mentor that I wanted, but what did I get? And then I pivot and see the flip side to it.
And I think too, it's really important to keep in mind that you really never know how people perceive you. Too,
Mm-hmm.
I think that I try to keep that in mind when I'm creating um, art, and when I'm working with other people and everything. And I think that some folks might be a little nervous when it comes to trying to reach out for that mentor or for that support system and to that community. um, and I would say, kind of like you and I were talking about earlier, Tyler, and that is just kind of like go for it. Just kind of
Mm-hmm.
message somebody, reach out, don't be afraid, because we as artists, I think, are our worst enemies sometimes,
Yeah.
because we're pretty hard on ourselves.
Oh, for sure.
We're pretty mean to ourselves sometimes, and I think that we forget our own self-worth sometimes, especially
Mm-hmm.
when we feel scared because something new is happening around us. And so, take that plunge and ask somebody for help. The worst people can say is no.
Yep.
And then there's so many human beings on planet Earth. You'll find friends, like you'll find people. It's not the end of the world if somebody doesn't want to mentor you, but you want to find out.
Yeah.
You want to take that plunge and find out and see if you can make it work. So never be afraid to go for it.
Uh, for sure. Um, Man, I'm trying. How are
Pencil
we?
flag for the
Running out of
win. We got about 8 minutes until we review the challenge entries, but we will have a little bit of time after that if you want to throw some textures on. We could also, if you need a little more time to work on stuff, we can also check out the challenges a few minutes later as well,
time? Okay.
if you want to kind of power through some things.
Uh, yeah. Let me get this just right. I would probably tweak the angle of this flag, but I'm just gonna leave it for sake of time.
That looks awesome, though.
And then do some trickery with
There
my
we
angles,
go.
so I don't have to repeat too much of my stuff. And we're gonna bring it up and just adjusting it. This is where layers would come in. So what I said earlier about not having many layers,
Mm-hmm.
if you have more layers, I could just get it in front of this tomato a lot quicker.
Mm-hmm.
But having to do it manually, it's about like that.
Look at that. Pencil done in 10 minutes. I know, that was really quick, and it was like a way more detailed pencil than I thought it was going to be perfectly honest. I thought you were
And
going to make like a pencil shape and just put it in there, and I was like, oh, all right, we're getting fancy now. I see. All right.
this is where I almost call it like recycling shapes.
Mm-hmm.
I do it a lot because you see I'm about to use this oval from the eraser to then create my entry point.
That's awesome.
This, send that back, and then this needs to just be like a darker color.
Amazing.
And the only thing happening weird here is the fact that it's overlapping this. So maybe we can trick it by just, I don't know, maybe we can move this
Boom.
without creating too much problems. Adjust my shadows. Okay, I think that did something.
Nice.
And I think this needs to be there. This needs to be that.
The thing is that at school or work, the person giving the critique should have some credibility. They are your teacher or fellow student. Some rando in the comments, not so much. True, which is why I say if you're hunting for your own mentor, and you're not in a school setting, it's really important to make sure that you find somebody trustworthy. I'm not saying like just go ask the community at large for a critique. I would say if you're new to critiques, that's actually probably going to be like the hardest thing, is to just ask the general public
Yeah.
for a general opinion. I would say do what somebody actually asked me for a critique recently, and just said I was really excited to help them. They just said, hey, I've been looking at your art for a long time. You kind of have a style that I really would like to go for. And I was wondering if you could take a look at my work and kind of tell me how I can improve, and what you think. And that
Hmm.
was really cool because I was just like, okay, so this person is probably where I was maybe 6 years ago, and is really kind of looking for somebody to help. And they've approached me because my work is the kind of stuff that they want to do
Hmm.
moving forward. So I was like, yeah, I'll give you a critique. And it was like they came to me specifically because I do what they want to do.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And I always tell people, like, seek another opinion if you want, because I'm not the end all be all of what you
Hmm.
ought to do with your artwork. But you might try that, is like hunt for somebody for a critique that does the kind of work that you want, so you're not asking somebody of a completely different kind of discipline to give you a critique, who may point you in the direction they might go, but not necessarily the direction that you would want to go for your own career, you know.
Yeah.
And that works. So uh
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you have to have that right support system, so to speak,
yeah.
because you could easily ask the wrong people. And I mean, I have my little network of, all right, this is who I would probably ask this question to, and then this is who I would show this to
Yeah.
kind of get what I need to hear. Because I mean, a lot of times, and you get this with experience, is just you just need reassurance.
Yeah.
It's like I know something's wrong in this area. I know it. I can feel it. I can see it, but I can't really tell you why.
Yep.
And
And I think you like, people on the outside looking in easily forget that not every artist that's making cool things is an endless well of like confidence and awesome ideas. You
Mhm.
know, we're not constantly coming up with cool things. And it can be really, really hard to like keep up with the
Mhm.
expectation of other folks. You know, we're all human. So everybody, I think, really needs kind of a helping hand, and somebody just not, maybe not to ask for a critique like how should I change this painting or
Yeah.
change this design, but just like, how do I, like, does this look good? Somebody
Mhm.
please, like, help me out. And am I going in the right direction with this? Somebody
Yeah,
you
that's
trust that has a good eye.
that's a huge one. Because you just need that reassurance. It gets back to what you said earlier. I mean, we don't always know the right solution. You just develop problem solving skills, and you just get better at, all right, let's just fix this in front of us, and we're not going to freak out over it. We're not going to give up. That's the big thing too,
Yeah.
because you can't give up.
Uh uh Prativa says, how do I find the right people? How do I know if I'm talking to the right people? That's a tricky one, because I definitely know that in the beginning I kind of listened to some people who were not the right people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think like the wrong people are the ones who are giving like a personal opinion versus um, an actual critique of the work, like what they want to
Yeah.
see you do versus things that actually improve your work. And
Yeah.
so that's why I said I think the best people that I ever got um, advice from were people that I got to know a little bit before I asked them for work, or at least people that I have been watching online and have been fans of for a long time, because then I knew like what they were doing, that's what I wanted my work to look like. Or maybe
Yeah.
people I'd just been watching on Twitch for a long time and I talked to them in the chat often. And then eventually said, you know, I could explain to them, this is what I want to do with my work. You could even supply somebody, you know, with images of like what you want. And sometimes it's not a matter of like finding one mentor that's your mentor indefinitely. It's a matter of like asking for somebody else's opinion. Like, here's an example of what I want my work to look like, but I can't tell looking at this example and looking at my work what exactly my work is lacking, because sometimes you can't do that for yourself. So you just need another eye. And if you're asking somebody that, I would say ask at least 3 different people what they think, because even good people can sometimes be more opinionated versus constructive with their criticism.
Yeah, because it takes a network, and I mean that's the whole thing. I've been there. I'm sure you know you've been there too, where the response of how do I do this and how do I get the network, and the response is it comes with time, it comes with experience. I hated that. I still sometimes hate that because it's just it doesn't give me what I want, which is an actual answer. And I see the point now. You know, I've been doing this for over 7 years, and I get it. You know, there are some things that you learn over time, and it's those experiences with clients or interactions with certain situations.
Yep. We are at our deadline now to check out the challenge entry. So if you could post, or maybe our mods will post the link to the Illustrator Discord so we can check out the challenge entries for that. I'm going to pop over here to our full cam screen so I can pull some things up. And then if you are not in the, oops, my Illustrator window just went over your webcam. There we go. If you are not in the Illustrator Discord, you can be if you click the link that they put into the chat. Boop, boop, boop. And I can also toss it in there. There's going to be a slight delay. Oh, thank you for posting that. Awesome, Wade. There we go. So I got my little window open, and we're going to check out some of the stuff that you guys have put in the Discord.
Nice.
You come in here, and then I'm gonna switch over to my thing here. I'll actually flip back while I'm making sure I pull this up. I'll flip back to your artwork, so just in case you're still noodling with things. Oh, I see you're adding texture. Oh yeah, there we go. There we go.
And then showing the magic now. So I only use like maybe 3 or 4 brushes.
Where did you get these brushes, by the way? Do you remember, or just things you found?
I've accumulated the subtle noise. I have a subtle noise brush, and it's just like a bunch of little specks, you know? And then I have this watercolor brush that I use a lot. And that's how I get that vintage look to it. And It's just about layering and then using your layer effects.
Yeah, I love the like adding the blending modes and adding textures and stuff. And I even, for me personally, I have like several really cool like noise textures that I really love to use for things. I got them. Have you ever been to True Grit Texture Co? I love their noise textures. I got a pack of them after, I believe, one of our guests actually kind of showed us that place during one of the streams, and I thought it was so cool. So I highly encourage anybody, if you're interested in like noise textures, to kind of check it out, because it's a really neat place to get them, and I love them. This is cool.
I've used Retro Supply Company, I think.
Oh yeah,
they're really good.
All right, I think I'm connected in here. My Discord decided to ask me to verify my password before I jumped into it, so it was giving me a little trouble. I was trying to
Oh,
kind
they're
of
scary.
stall a little bit when I jumped in here. But I think we are good. I'm going to pull this up and then we're going to check it out. I'm also going
Okay.
to pull up the landing page just so I can read what today's challenge is about too. So it says label design. Design a custom lemonade bottle label, then get it ready for print. That sounds awesome. So the XD, or not XD, the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge, I believe, is, if I check out the schedule, it's actually going to be right after us. So we may not have any brand new ones in the chat right now, but we can still kind of check out to see if anybody has posted one, which I believe we do have an entry, which is awesome. I'm always in awe of people who do the challenge before our instructors do the challenge. So it looks like we got this one from 24. And it's like this really cool, like, dinosaur, like, velociraptor kind of thing. Kind of label, which I think is really cool. And this is just in the challenge feedback section. If you guys are jumping into the Discord right now, there is a challenge channel under the feedback tab on the left-hand side where all of the channels are, and you can click right into there and it'll pull that up. There's also some, just for future reference, there's also a design other channel in here, folks. So if you have never jumped in here, people who are fans of the challenge and who are like looking for feedback on their personal work, you can actually post to design other if you want and get some feedback just from the community and from the mentors in here. So those of you who were looking and asking, like, how do I find good people to give me feedback? How do I find mentors? How do I find reliable information when it comes to my work? This is a great place right here to kind of post what you want to post and see if anyone sends you some feedback. So just with this one, let me see. I think this one is a little older. Let me see. Let me make sure all of this is posted. Oh, maybe all of these. I'm trying to check the dates on these to see if these are new or old. No, these may be new. They look like bottle banners or bottle labels to me. So I'm gonna kind of go through some of these and give a little feedback. And if you wanna take a look at some of them too, Tyler, feel free to offer any information that you see fit too. So this is from Ant Visual Festival. This is Art, Film, and Performance, Adobe Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge. This one, actually, these are older because this says the 6th through the 19th. But we'll take a look at some of them anyways, because I think that these colors are really cool. And I also like that you have so many shapes and things kind of embedded into the word visual here. I think in a lot of situations, this could be considered quite busy, but I think the colors work so well. It looks more fun to me rather than something that's hard to look at with all the colors and shapes. So I think it's well done. I would just say, like, the right side here kind of looks a little unnecessary to me, even though it has like a lot of really cool designs and things. But the actual infographic element of this seems pretty cool to me. It's something I could see as like maybe a bumper sticker or something that you could buy to support your community at like a farmer's market or festival or something, which I think is cool.
Yeah, I like the way the visual's made.
Oh, it is. Michelle says it is for the challenge. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I agree. I think the word visual looks pretty cool. All right, let's see what else we can check out. This one, Arthur J.B. Costa, Power of Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge. This one is cool too. I think this one is maybe a little busier to me. What do you think, Tyler?
Uh,
It's the purple one from Arthur, I think. Arthur? If I got that right. Let me see if I can close this. Yeah, Arthur B. Costa,
oh,
J.B.
yeah,
Costa.
interesting. Well, I love the gradients. I
Yeah.
mean, those talk about the color palettes and stuff that I love. It gets your eye.
Yeah, definitely love purple. That's my favorite color. I kind of feel like for this one, there's a lot of cool stuff going here, but there's a lot of other design elements that are maybe unnecessary. I think that you have chosen like a pretty fun font for the power of Illustrator, but I almost feel like it looks like you may have a stroke around, like a white stroke around white text because the negative space in some of the letters look a little lost. And I don't think that you need the pink bar behind it because if the letters are very distinctive with it being white against those dark colors and the black specifically, I think it would be visible. Um,
Yeah. You know what I almost think too is I like the fact that you spice it up with like a different font for the power of Illustrator. I almost want to see something, if not the same, down below
yeah,
Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge because that feels a little disconnected to me. I think there's an opportunity there you could really hit on.
yeah, I think so too. And I do like that you've added like that splash of yellow and green because I think it differs so much from like the main color palette that it draws your eye to that, which I think is cool. But yeah, I think with the text is probably the main thing that kind of throws me off because I think you could still have that power of Illustrator be visible without all of the background. Maybe a black stroke if you absolutely
Mm.
must. The Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge has at the bottom has the black stroke, which isn't too bad. But I even think you could test it out even just with the without the black stroke on that, just to see how it goes.
Yeah, I think that would just dial it back in those little areas.
Yeah. And then the next one, let's look at another. This one from ID Design, Power of Art. This is pretty cool too. This is another one that just has like a really interesting color palette. Some of the kind of tan and pinkish colors
Mhm.
that you like.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
Yeah. I'm really liking that green with that kind of like pinkish tan color. I almost think that the element of actual tan kind of behind the red dots could be lighter and brighter so
Mhm.
that it doesn't because the value is very similar and it's starting to get lost in the background color.
Mhm.
While the other ones are kind of stark enough to pull themselves out from the background. So I would maybe say try brightening that up a little bit. But other than that, I don't think I have anything to critique. Do you have anything that you want
Yeah,
to add?
I think the hierarchy there is what I'm having a little issue with because my eye is seeing the shapes at the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, I think with there being some sort of copy in the middle here, maybe that's more important.
Mm-hmm.
Figuring out the color, and I think the design and layouts fun. It's just the color I think is what's throwing it.
Yeah. You could try either making the top pattern a different color that blends more so that power of art sticks out, or you could possibly try making power of art the same green color as the top, which
Mm.
might kind of pull
Yeah,
it out and make it pop a little bit. So yeah, I think that's great advice. Is kind of like really like when you because when I blur my eyes a little bit and I look at it, I definitely am not seeing the power of art. My eyes do go
mhm,
directly to that top. Um,
yeah,
so
same.
all right, let's check out the next one from Vanta Black, which I think is so cool. I don't know if you guys know what Vanta Black is. Have you ever heard of Vanta
What is
Black?
that? No, I don't know
It's
what that is.
it's like a special patented kind of black that you
Okay.
have. I think you have to actually like have a contract or something to use it.
What?
And it's so black that it like sucks the light out of the area. So they have items and things that are painted in Vanta Black, and you can't actually see any of the details of the item that's painted because it disappears into the darkness.
What?
It's like
That's
Sith
awful.
Lord Black, basically, is what it is. It's awesome. So I love that this is your username. I think that's super neat. If you don't know what Vanta Black is, please Google it, because it's literally one of the coolest things on earth. And it says Power of Art 2020, July 7th through 17th. AI Daily Creative Challenge. I see with this combination of text, I really don't mind that it's different, just because everything is so aligned. I also don't know that I mind that. I was gonna say maybe the power of art should not be black, but it's actually not too bad. I think the thing that makes me kind of want it to be brighter is that the gradient on the top fades to dark when it already goes to dark towards the bottom of the graphic. What do you think?
Yeah, I also, I don't know if maybe it's my screen, but is Power of Art a different color black than the black down below?
Oh, yeah, it looks like
A
it's
little darker.
darker. Yeah, it is darker. You got a good eye, man. I didn't even catch that.
I was just like noticing that. I was like, they could be the same color there for sure.
Yeah, if it was
Uh,
the same color, it would be different.
and make the white pop a little bit more. I
Mm-hmm.
think the Power of Art is darker.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe try making them the same color, and I almost want that gradient behind the Power of Art 2020 just to keep fading up into a
Oh
lighter
yeah.
red, because that would make the black Power of Art really pop,
Yep,
and you would
yep.
see it kind of like the white text pops at the bottom. So I
Yeah.
would say test that out. But this is kind of this is a pretty clean, interesting design.
Mm-hmm.
I think
It
it
definitely
reminds me of like retro kind of stuff.
yeah. Well, it gets you, to the messaging, which I think it's a fun way of doing it. Just the
Yeah,
negative space.
yeah, definitely. Ernesto says Vanta Black absorbs 99.99% of UV light. That's and
Oh,
it's yeah, it looks like a void. They have a place, I can't remember where it is, but they have a place where they just painted a giant circle of Vanta Black on the ground,
yeah.
and when you walk past it you get vertigo really bad because it makes you feel like you might fall into a pit, but it's just the ground.
I've never heard of this.
Yeah, it's crazy. In fact, here I'm gonna switch. I'm gonna switch back to your art because I think that's probably all the time we have to look at these, and I know that you're adding some details that I want to make sure we show off before the end of our broadcast. So I'm gonna pop over here, and while I'm on your screen, I'm actually gonna pull up Vanta Black
Awesome.
so that we can show it. So maybe you can kind of go over what, like, because we saw you kind of adding like the details
Mm-hmm.
and things, and you've just been kind of, I think, adding more texture with those brushes,
Yeah.
and kind of playing with blend modes to give it a little more texture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've just kind of, and you'll see over here in where are we going here? My layers. I had various noise layers. Then I have that watercolor brush that we talked about earlier. I put those
Mm-hmm.
that are on their own layers. I kind of, you know, categorize everything like that. Just because sometimes you add too much noise and you might need to turn that layer off to fix it. So that's where
Gotcha.
layers come in. Um, Also for the highlights, same, and then the shadows. And I'm just building those on top of each other, and I'm switching the noise from white. Sometimes I'm doing it to black or maybe an orange.
Gotcha.
And each one of those layers are kind of the same kind of method. And then, again, I like to top it off with like a curve or maybe two of them, and then like a vibrance. Yeah, it
Cool.
just kind of brings it to like a different composition.
Yeah, it really does. It kind of pulls it out even more. I also really like that you added the shadow, because I think the shadow helped pull the light color of the mustard and cheese
Mm-hmm.
from the background, which is really nice too. I found a couple of images of Vanta Black that I'm
Oh, let's
gonna
see.
show. This is two identical statues, um, but one of the faces of the statues is painted in Vanta Black. And it literally looks like somebody just Photoshop like cut out the other part of the
No way.
statue, because it's so black.
That's
It's
insane.
insane.
Yeah.
And then this one is the image of like the circle that is painted, and it looks like just like a black pit that people are standing around. It doesn't even look
Yeah.
like it. Almost, yeah, it looks like somebody photoshopped portions out of images whenever people take pictures of Vanta Black painted items. It's bizarre, but very very fun to kind of look at and check out. So Vanta Black is like a black hole. Very similar, it looks like to me. There apparently, yes, there's a Vanta Black BMW.
I wonder how that's what that's like driving on the road.
Probably dangerous, probably terrifying to see. I also saw an image. There was somebody. It looked like he had a Vanta Black watch face,
Okay.
which was really really cool. So I don't know. I just feel like there's so many cool things that you could make Vanta Black, but I don't know that people are ready to just see that every day, because
Yeah.
it looks like it kind of gives me the same feeling I have when I look, I guess, in Hawaii. There's a time of day and year where nothing has very few things in Hawaii have a shadow because the sunlight is coming from directly above. So
Oh
like
yeah.
there's like light poles and things
Mhm.
where it doesn't, like there's no shadow on any side of it because everything is pointing
Yeah.
directly down. And it looks like cars and things are like GTA models. You know, like
Yeah.
it's really weird. So it kind of gives me that feeling like something here is not right, and I don't know why
Yeah.
it doesn't look right, but something's wrong.
Not
Um,
right at all. That's really cool.
Also, we have just a few minutes left, unfortunately, before
Okay.
we have to say goodbye. So, Tyler, why don't you kind of let everybody know where they can find you online, and maybe talk a little bit about your project, The Creative Pain, and things, so people know
Yeah.
where they can find you and how they can get a hold of your work and see what you're doing next.
Yeah, so you can keep up with anything that I'm doing. Like currently, I post a lot of behind the scenes on my Instagram at typo11. I also have the Creative Pain, and that's kind of where you'll see the finished product of a lot of these things. And I try to do tutorials and also just longer time lapses so people can really skim through. And I found that's pretty helpful for a lot of people. So all these illustrations or projects that I'm working on, I kind of post through there. And there's a YouTube channel that's the Creative Pain. Also, there's a store, so you can see any Creative Pain merch, T-shirts, stickers, those candles we talked about. You can get those from the Creative Pain store. And yeah, I'm dabbling in different things like that. You could see my personal portfolio at Tyler Pate Design Co.
Nice.
And I do freelance too there.
Awesome. Well, there you go, folks. Check them out. CreativePain.com, Tyler Pate Design Co. Definitely check out the Creative Pain YouTube channel as well as the Instagram. I know Wade just posted the Instagram in there. I've been like, even during the stream, like scrolling
Yeah.
through the Instagram. So it's a really cool place to be. You definitely don't want to miss your chance to follow, so check them out. And yeah, I'm really pumped. I really had a fantastic time hanging out with you. I'm gonna kind of pop back over to your art and
Yeah,
and
get a
uh,
finish
show it
the
off.
result.
This is
Yeah.
so cool.
So
Maybe we can see, like before we take off, we can see like the original starting point too, and then oh, I love the subtle like
you
like
see that?
white. Yes, that is so cool.
The and in over the course of us talking, this is kind of where I landed with that amount of time. So it's pretty quick.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's what you meant yesterday when you were saying, like, yeah, here's a piece of, talking to a client, here's a piece of work that I did that has more detail. If you
Yeah,
want this, just give me another hour. Like, you really can go in
exactly.
and do that pretty quickly. That's
And
rad.
the last thing I'll say, and this is where you really pull in those details. I usually just get like a taper brush, like the stock taper brush that you get.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get this thing, and I'll turn it to like a solid white, zero spacing, this is where the Wacom comes in handy, and I'll put it to like a 1 point,
Mm-hmm.
right? Pixel brushstroke, and I'm in there and I'm just doing lines.
Yeah, and just making tiny, tiny
Yeah,
details and little scratches and things.
yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
you do that enough when you're zoomed in like this, and you'll zoom out and you'll realize that it just completely changed the level of detail that it was at, and it looks
Nice.
so good at the end.
All right, well, that is all the time we have got for today. Thank you, everyone in chat, for joining us and hanging
Thank you.
out. Thank you so much, Tyler, for being here with us and creating for us. It's been a wonderful pleasure and just
Mhm.
been cool to not only see you work, but also kind of check out some of your past work throughout here and
Yeah.
kind of like see the evolution of Creative Pain products. It's
Mhm.
just been nice. Definitely check him out. Like I said, on YouTube, the Creative Pain .com and the Tyler Pate Design Co. See what he's working on, where he's going in the future, and I assume you probably will post this on Instagram so people can see
Yes.
the final product. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, for
And
sure.
please stay tuned because Julia Masalska is coming up right after us with the Illustrator Creative Challenge, and you don't want to miss that. So thank you all so much,
Thanks again,
and we
everyone.
will catch you later. Adios, folks.